made the unprecedented decision to keep the eatery open 24 hours.
They both took the news a little differently. SpongeBob was excited to stay later. Squidward was mad because he couldn't go home, but they didn't think much of it. They both thought Krusty Krab, same during the day as it is at night, but they were wrong.
The night began like any other. Customers came and went, orders were placed, and those same orders were filled. But it wasn't long before the shift began to slow down, and boredom set in. As a harmless means to keep himself entertained, Squidward told a ghost story. A story he had thought came solely from his imagination. It was the tale of the ghostly, hash-slinging slasher, the supposed former fry cook, the Krusty Krab. The story told the details of the cook's life and untimely death.
As legend has it, he was just a regular fry cook working a part-time job, and he was a little clumsy. So one night he went to the kitchen to cut the patties like he always does, but this night he was particularly clumsy. And after a few minutes of the repetitive motion, his hand slipped.
It was his own trusty knife that ultimately cut off his hand. But before the young fry cook could even call out for help, he was hit by a bus.
The kitchen is generally a safe place for the employees. Yes, you have your knives, you have hot stoves. You never expect to get hit by a bus.
When SpongeBob heard that story, he was really shaken up. He was screaming, his eyeballs were screaming. He was really shaken up. I think that's why Squidward confessed. I think he just really wanted to calm SpongeBob down.
But was the tale of the hash-slinging slasher truly a work of fiction? Paranormal investigator Arnold Douglas doesn't think so.
Supernatural presences like this can hold a lot of power over the subconscious of an untrained mind. You know, Mr. Tentacle seems to believe he was making this all up, but I've seen a lot of ghosts. Now, this is a ghost. I think Mr. Tentacles was subconsciously tapping into this old fry cook spirit energy. I think he might have the gift.
Just to let you know, this is called SpongeBob
Squidward, believing that his story was fabricated, went about what he
Documentary
hoped would be a
Pants,
peaceful
I
night of reading.
think.
But the night
And you can check it out on Disney Plus.
Eerie noises began to drift down from the ceiling of the establishment.
It sounded like this weird popping sound he was hearing over and over and over again. And alone in the dark like that, I think it'd get anyone thinking, is this all in my head or is it real?
I'd like to examine this book he was reading. You know, it appears he was behaving normally, but something wasn't right about this book. There was no title, nothing on the cover whatsoever. Even the pages were completely blank. Mr. Tentacles may not have even noticed it, but I believe the spirit had him.
Blank books and strange noises were only the beginning, because just after 3 a.m., coincidentally the perfect time to eat a Krabby Patty, the real haunting.
If you're a teen watching
Neither
this,
of them
then
had ever been there that late
nice to
before,
know. But
it
if
was
you're a kid
Tuesday
watching
night.
this might be a
The
little
very
scary
same
for
night
you.
The fry cook supposedly cut off his hand. I don't think it was a coincidence. What happened next?
Or
And the
more
lights just
scary
went out.
than
No
usual.
warning, no nothing. That's
SpongeBob
wrong.
is a very
And then they were off. And they were on. And then they were off again. But then they were
show.
on. And they were off again. And then they came back on again. Squidward thought, SpongeBob's just playing a trick on me. He's trying to get revenge for that scary story, you know, because he heard that the flickering lights were a calling card of the hash-slinging slasher.
SpongeBob wasn't touching the light switch. In fact, he thought that Squidward was doing it. But then they could both see nobody was touching it. And they're both looking at each other like, what the barnacles is going on?
Startled, Squidward attempted to justify the flickering as faulty wiring, a mere result of keeping on the lights for 24 hours. But his explanation was quickly undermined by another frightening occurrence. A phantom phone call.
Squidward was already pretty jumpy when the phone rang. So when he picked it up, he sounded really startled. I think you remember the story. Phantom phone call. It's another calling card of the slasher. And I know as he picked up that phone, he was just praying that there was someone on the other end.
But of course, there wasn't. So in a whirlwind of panic, the octopus frantically attempted to recount the details of the story, desperately hoping that it would provide some clue for what would come next. But what came next was something the story didn't foretell. Both employees report seeing a strange green slime ooze out of the wall, an apparition that after mere seconds seems to have vanished without a trace.
What's strange about this is that Squidward was oddly calm about it, just sort of accepting it. He even claimed that the Walls had always done this. You know, he said, they always do that.
We scoured the records, the archive footage, the blueprints of the Krusty Krab. Nothing. There is not a shred of evidence that these walls ever oozed green slime before, but somehow Squidward swears he remembers it happening all the time.
I think the hash-slinging slasher spirit was having a greater effect on Squidward now. It was getting closer to him, and it was actually altering his memory.
As Squidward's memory grew foggy, a thick fog also engulfed the front door to the Krusty Krab. The employees claim it was an unnatural fog, with a greenish hue. It lingered for a few seconds, and then it was gone. But in its wake was a Crimson City bus.
SpongeBob had been stranded in Rock Bottom before, so he knew the buses didn't run this late. Ever. Something wasn't right.
It was only after the strange bus departed that the employees caught a glimpse of something they'd never forget.
I mean, the bus was scary enough, but what it left behind, what they saw, it was disturbing.
Squidward and SpongeBob both described what they saw that night, squinting into the darkness outside the building, as a looming shadow staring blankly back at them.
It was kind of hunched over. If you look closely enough, you could see these deep red eyes. You could even see the silhouette of a spatula. Where the left hand was supposed to be, so the hand was cut off. Like from the story.
Frozen with fear, the two longtime employees of the Krusty Krab could only watch as the front door slowly opened and the shadowy figure slipped inside.
It had to have been the scariest moment of their lives. They were trapped, and they were dealing with forces way outside of their understanding.
The pair embraced and closed their eyes as the shadow approached, unable to look at the sight they were certain would be their last.
When they opened their eyes, the shadow was gone. Instead, there was just some kid standing there, probably wondering why they were looking so scared, and there was no sign of the slasher anywhere.
The spirit of the hash-slinging slasher had left the building, and Squidward and SpongeBob felt safe at last.
It felt like somebody was standing over your shoulder, like breathing on your neck, and then suddenly they were gone. It's hard to describe what it was like, but it was just oddly still after that.
Now, skeptics often claim that what they saw that night actually was just this kid that came in, but no. It's very clear to me that the hash-slinging slasher spirit was there that night. And this kid showing up startled the spirit, scared it away.
This isn't the first paranormal occurrence in Bikini Bottom, and it probably won't be the last, but it is the most polarizing. A lot of people like to say that there is a logical explanation to everything that happened that night, but then there are the other people who like to point to all those little occurrences that can't be explained. It's hard to know what to believe.
It's remarkable what the skeptics will tell themselves to avoid the overwhelming reality that a former employee cut off his hand, replaced it with a spatula, was hit by a bus, and haunts the building every Tuesday night.
Today, both Squidward and SpongeBob continue to work at the Krusty Krab. There have been no further reports about the slasher, and life seems to have moved on for the underwater employees. It's not clear if they ever told their boss, Mr. Krabs, what happened that night. But it is clear that neither Squidward nor SpongeBob have worked a night shift since.
These guys were lucky. When facing something like this, they... Wait. Did you hear that? No. Shh. Shh. Quiet. Did you hear that? No. You heard that last one. You heard it. It's all around us.
While the story of the hash-slinging slasher was never confirmed, for two workers on one particular Tuesday night shift at the Krusty Krab, there's no trace of doubt that